All right, so for today, we are very fortunate to be joined by some leaders of Ely Community Resource. Julie Hignell is the executive director and Ryan Stewart is the family resource coordinator. And we have a student, a youth mentee here with us as well. So Kai, thank you so much for being here. I will pass the microphone. Let's welcome them to the Choosing Your program.
Thanks so much. I'm always so short. I can't see everybody. It's really nice that you're all here. It's so wonderful to see so many faces of people who have supported ECR for a long time. And I just feel like we're really surrounded by friends today, and happy that we have a chance to tell you about our mentoring program, which is on the move. It's really growing, and we have some information to share with you and maybe get some advice from you, or offer an opportunity for you to get involved. We've had the mentoring program since 1978 when Ely Community Resource was started. And we've even had mentees along all of those years whose parent was mentored by a community member. So it's a great tradition, and I think you all know that our community really does support and think about our youth and do what it takes to make Ely a great place to grow up. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Ryan, who is our family resource facilitator. He works with the school and with the clinic and with the behavioral health network and with county services for helping people have quality of life here in northern Minnesota. So we're so happy to have him on board. He's doing a great job, and what he offers is really courageous outreach. He's fearless on the telephone when we need to know something. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan right now.
Well, thanks, Julie. Thanks, Lacey. Thanks for showing up, everybody. We decided to shirk tradition and not use the podium. Podiums just make me feel like a CEO or something. So decided that was weird. But yeah, this presentation is going to be fairly informal. So feel free to just ask questions along the way. We'll have to ask questions at the end as well. And I'm going to start by just sort of offering some perspective on like what's going on in the lives of Ely youth. And then we're going to talk a little bit about like what are some of the programs that we have to sort of address those things. But I want to start with a couple of caveats. We're just sort of sharing our perspective. There's a lot of varied experience in the lives of kids in this town, and we're going to like generalize a little bit and just talk about what we see. But we don't have any like hard data or science behind. We don't have any like sweet statistics to share with you. Maybe we will in the future. But also it's kind of weird to talk about youth without involving their perspective. So for that reason, I wrote Kaio in to come join for the last day of spring break and just offer some perspective as we go. And I mentor Kaio as a part of our program. And Kaio also kind of mentors me. I learn about like quantum physics and stuff that I know nothing about. So let's start with like the good. Like, what are some things that Ely kids have got going on for them? So if you think about it, like nationwide, about 19% of teenagers in the US have jobs. And if you've lived in Ely in the summertime, especially, you know that the percentage of Ely youth with jobs is way higher. It seems like pretty much every kid in this town has a job. Some of them have like 3 jobs. Some of them work like 60 hours a week, which is I think illegal maybe, but they're really busy, and there's a lot of ways that having a job supports social and emotional and financial well-being for kids. But they also, having a job also just gives them purpose during the summer. It gives them something to do, something to keep busy, something to focus on. And I think that goes a long ways towards preventing mental health issues and risky behaviors and things like that. Ely is also a fairly inclusive place compared to other rural communities. Feedback that I've heard from teachers who've worked in different small towns around Minnesota have said that Ely families in particular are just a lot more open-minded and less abrasive towards people who are different. And there's definitely still room to grow in that regard. I think that, you know, the school culture and everyone can always become more inclusive, but I think that's something that we are comparatively doing pretty well at. And kids are also really busy in this town. They've got a lot going on. It's kind of wild. I know, like, when I first started like living full-time in Ely, I was like, man, I'm gonna be kind of lonely and bored and like live in the woods, but there's like so much going on in this town, and it's true for kids as well. The adults in their lives are really good at encouraging them to participate in sports and extracurricular activities and youth groups and things like that. So that's sort of the good. Oops, skip the slide. So what are some things that Ely kids are struggling with? So Ely kids are not entirely unique. We live in a wonderful place with really good opportunities, but COVID negatively impacted kids in the same ways that it impacted kids in the entire country. So isolation and loneliness is a big factor. We see that in the student population. There's also, especially after COVID, anxiety around attending school after not being in school, not being in social settings. There's still a lot of folks that are sort of recovering from that. There's also, although Ely is a very inclusive place, there's still students who are sort of in marginalized groups who don't feel supported. LGBTQ students especially, I think, tend to not feel supported by their peers or hear negative language a lot at school or in other settings. Sometimes Ely can be it can be a very cold place, and if you're not really into skiing and you're not really into snowmobiling, or you don't have access to those things, it's really hard in the winter to find ways to socially engage and get out of the house. And so because of that, a lot of kids end up playing video games a lot, like spend a lot of their time doing that. And you know, there's nothing inherently wrong about video games, but they're you know, when it becomes an addiction or it becomes something that is at the exclusion of social engagement in real life, then it can be kind of a problem. There's also, like, kids across the entire US are struggling with their mental health right now. So some statistics from 2021, 4 in 10 students felt persistently sad or hopeless, and nearly a third experienced poor mental health. And in 2021, more than 1 in 5 students seriously considered attempting suicide, and 1 in 10 did attempt suicide. So these are pretty jarring statistics, and I think that the numbers have actually risen since 2021. And Ely is no different. These same things are showing up for the students here. Hayo, do you have any things that you want to add about, like, what you think kids are struggling with?
Yeah. Okay. One of the main things that is like bad with kids is that with like emotional maturity, some of them don't do very well with that because since this town is really small, there's not a lot of diversity that people experience with other people. So it causes like people to be pretty short-minded and not really like they'll point out unique things about other people and like discriminate, and it's not necessarily their fault. They're not like purposely doing it. It's simply because this town's small, so they don't experience much uniqueness in other people. So they just point it out and discriminate, either on purpose or on accident. There's also, well, being addicted to social media. It can, make you not go outside or socialize with other people, even though it's called social media. So it's pretty not a good thing because, I mean, not socializing with people is pretty much just isolation, but voluntary. And another big problem is that you'll like compare yourself to other people on social media, and a lot of people purposely make themselves seem better on social media. So you're pretty much comparing yourself to someone that doesn't exist, and it makes you feel like you're bad at everything when that's clearly not true.
Thanks. Okay, so those are some of the challenges, and I'm going to talk about mentoring as one of the supports that exists in this town as sort of a solution, or at least something to help. So maybe it's a little tongue-in-cheek to say that mentoring can save lives, but it does have a notable impact on young people's mental health. And with suicide as the second leading cause of death for youth, it's important. It's not insignificant. So these are a couple of statistics that I found that were interesting about how supportive adults can impact someone's well-being or their life, frankly. In particular, LGBTQ youth having a supportive adult in their life can make a huge impact because they often feel like they don't have any supportive adults. And a lot of teenagers do have supportive adults, especially in this town. There's a lot of very supportive people, but sometimes they're not people that they're especially close with. Sometimes relationships with parents can be very complicated and very strained. So mentoring can help provide that supportive adult for people who don't have it. So what does mentoring look like in our program? First thing to say is that we have just talked about like a bunch of heavy things and things that people are struggling with, but mentoring is available to anyone. We're not looking to provide mentors exclusively to folks who are like struggling or not being successful in school or whatever. We believe that any youth can benefit from having a mentor to check in with and help them become their best selves. And mentoring is primarily about helping these kids feel respected, cared about, and valued. And it's also about helping them achieve what they want to achieve, helping them become the best version of themselves. So what does it look like? Typically, mentors will meet one-on-one about once a week. They'll meet in public settings, do activities together. They will work on setting goals together, trying to like figure out what does this person want to achieve in the next year, and then how can we sort of like work towards making steps to accomplish some of those things. So some examples, like Kaio and I started mentoring by just going on weekly runs, and that turned out to be really cool because I really like running, he really likes running, and it was an opportunity, and you live really close to the Trezona, so it was just like super convenient. And then we got to have the experience of running in the glow run together, and Kyle like got really like placed really high up, which was sweet. And we also every once in a while we'll like get together and play chess, where I always lose because I don't really know how to play chess very well, and Kyle knows like the names for every single opening. But sometimes I'm bad enough that it like throws him off, which is also cool. We also have mentors and mentees that are going on hikes, going fishing, canoeing, yoga classes, ice fishing, movies together, volunteering at different events. And there are also some students, some mentees who are not ready to like try new things yet. They're not ready to be really open and vulnerable and fail at something. And in those mentoring relationships, they might just go on a walk and talk, or they might go for a drive and chat about the week. And it can be and sometimes it can feel like, oh, that's sort of superficial. They're just like having a conversation. But for that person, they still have a consistent person in their life who's reaching out to them and asking to hang out. And that might be the only person that they have in their life that is doing that. We also offer group mentoring programming. So we encourage mentors to bring their mentees to events that we put on and events in the community. We also have a variety of clubs, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we've done events like pumpkin carving, snowshoeing to the pictographs, trivia nights, things like that. And the goal of doing these group events is to have youth interact with their peers, but also having a supportive adult there. And this gives them an opportunity to see their peers acting in ways that are different than they see at school. One side effect of living in a small town is that you have a perception of who everyone is because you see them at school every single day. So getting to see people in different contexts and interacting in different relationship dynamics can go a long way to just like helping kids understand each other. Yeah, Kyle, what are some of the takeaways that you've had from mentoring, if you're willing to share?
Okay. One of the main things for mentoring that kind of happens for almost everyone that decides to do it is depression kind of just like gets mitigated like a lot. Like almost all of the feeling of depression whenever you're with your mentor or on like a trip kind of just goes away because you're just like, you're not focused on it. You're just kind of having fun. And another main thing is just like going outside, getting vitamin D, not sitting in your house doing nothing all day. You know, that usually happens whenever you're with a mentor, because it's like without the mentor, you just be sitting there doing nothing because there's no point. And also you get to learn a lot of stuff that you didn't think you would ever need or ever decide to go into. Like I learned about a bunch of random knots that I'm probably not ever going to use unless I'm with Rob. I only really use them on the trips. So there's also like the like whenever you like finish something or well learn something, you get like a sense of accomplishment. And every single time that you get that feeling, it just makes you feel like I am now a better person. And it's a pretty nice feeling, and pretty much everyone universally feels that. It's pretty common. You also get a lot better at like socializing because you're just talking with people if you're in like a group, and just talking with like your mentor about random stuff. And you just kind of become a better person than you were before.
Thanks.
Can I add something?
Yeah, totally.
I have to tell you one of my experiences. Can you hear me? Oh. I'd like to tell you about one of my experiences with one of my favorite kids that we work with. We were just finishing up and he came up to me and he grabbed me by the shoulders and he goes, "Julie, I just realized I haven't thought about my computer games for 5 hours."
Is that you?
That was me. I also did that on the other trip. I'm just like,
Yeah.
wait, I haven't used my phone for like 5 days.
And so who are the mentors? Mentors are volunteers from the community. Could be any of you potentially. We do vet mentors. We do a background check and have an application process. And then we try to match mentors with mentees based on similar interests, also based on preferences from the mentor or from the mentee's parents. They might want some specific characteristics. And we usually ask that mentors commit to at least a year of meeting regularly with their mentee. And often that relationship ends up continuing. And some mentors and mentees have been meeting for years and years. And it's like, at this point, it's just like a fluid and organic relationship. Yeah. How many are there in Ely? I don't know. Does somebody else know the answer to that?
100.
400.
There are 560 kids in our school,
Yo,
K
that was
through 12.
close.
Pretty cool. Okay, so I'm gonna transition to talking a little bit about care facilitation, which might seem super disconnected, but this is another piece of my job. Does anybody recognize any of these people? There's some of them. There's Kate right over there. As a part of the Pathways to Wellness program, and as a part of my role as a care facilitator, I work with these folks, and we collaborate to try and help people in the community navigate the bureaucracy of getting help. So you can see some of the things that we can help people with. We help connect them to resources. We help them submit applications and follow up and see how things are going. So I specifically work with families, so anyone that has kids involved. And this ties in well with mentoring, because if I have a family, if I'm working with a family that is struggling in some way, I can help connect them with a mentor. And also, if mentors are meeting with kids and talking with their parents and learn like, oh, this family really needs to get connected with like some mental health resources, or they really need to get connected to get like some additional food or clothing or furniture or whatever it is, it offers a really easy way to connect directly with those families and get to know them. So yeah, and being a part of this care facilitation team, it helps me figure out where there are different resources, and we can like collaborate to help serve these different families. Yeah.
You said, and when you were in introduced you said that you sort of specialize on working with families.
Yeah.
What would it look like to not work with families? I mean,
Yeah, I guess
the parents are gonna have to know, right?
right. I guess the alternative is like some of these folks in the care facilitator team work with individuals. Like they might work one-on-one with an elderly person in the community who doesn't have access to transportation or something like that. Whereas I'm working exclusively with families that have kids that are in the school system or homeschooled or but in the area. Does that answer your question?
Exactly.
Okay.
As part of ECR, I got it.
Yeah.
Who work with kids and the families are oblivious of that.
No, yeah. So any step of the way, the parents are involved. So if we're doing any sort of mentoring, the parents have already submitted an application to request mentoring, and then usually at the beginning of a mentoring pairing, we will like sit down. Well, every time we will sit down with the parents and just share sort of have them share their thoughts and perspective, and unless the parent is like, I want this kid to have a mentor, but I don't really want to be a part of the process. There's been 1 or 2 times where that's happened. Yeah, currently, I think we have 8 or 9 right now. So it's a fairly small program, but it is growing. I think after like during COVID, we had a lot of folks that couldn't meet with one another. So there was a lot of mentoring relationships that kind of couldn't continue. And so we've been over the past 2 years sort of rebuilding. And I think that we have like a handful more mentor-mentee relationships that are that we're trying to get set up right now. Did you have a question? Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, so on the far left is Matea Urbis, and then Allison Hyman, Heidi Vanderbeek, Kate Willis, and myself. And so Matea and Allison both work at the Ascension Clinic as care facilitators, and so they might get referrals from doctors, like, you know, here's a person that could use some help outside of their medical diagnosis or whatever, but in some social supports, and so they could go check in with Matea or Allison. And then Heidi Vanderbeek works for the Catholic Church as a care facilitator, and Kate works for well-being development. Yeah.
There's a question.
Oh, yeah.
What's mentoring in the Heritage Hospital? Does that happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. So far, that hasn't happened. I think that, I mean, the parent would have to be involved in some way or another. But that, you know, that could look a lot of different ways. And I would be super open to like trying to have dialogue with that parent to try and figure out a situation. But yeah, I mean, having a kid meet with an adult without the parent's permission is just like, we can't do that.
I can add that we do work very closely with our school, and we have a memorandum of understanding with them so that they will, if there's an issue like you described, we will talk with them about supports that we can provide for the student in school. You know, without creating something uncomfortable at home.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the ECR clubs, but does anyone have any other questions about mentoring? Yeah. Oh yeah.
If that would be a potential, if they could have a mentor relationship, even if they're only your sibling, or if there's other things they could do.
Bernie.
Yeah. So there are instances of that. We had one mentor who is going to be gone during the winter, but was here for 6 or 7 months of the year, and that worked out great because that the mentee was able to get connected with another person during the time that their other mentor wasn't there. So they kind of have like 2 mentors, and it's like a seasonal thing, and it worked out perfect. And yeah, we also have other opportunities to mentor youth, like not necessarily in a one-on-one capacity, but in group settings. So all of these clubs, for example, are things that we would be open to having volunteers, and we have had volunteers participate and share skills and share some of their learnings to to help. Yeah.
I just wanted to pass along what happened, other than that, so this would have been back in I think in the eighties, so there's one of the mentoring program was first beginning at UCR. And it was a wonderful opportunity. I had a young boy for about 4 years. And we connected really well. We participated in games together in sports and going different places and that kind of thing. I would say I hadn't seen him from then until about a few years ago. And he was here in Ely. He's a grown-up adult with his family now, and he came up and said, "Barry, I want you to know you saved my life." That's how important.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, totally. I try and make an effort to connect with each of the mentors and offer a little bit of like training. We also have some mentor gatherings where we'll all get together and sort of share resources, share best practices and ideas. But essentially, if there's ever anything that comes up, I'm there to like answer questions or help coordinate. And that happens from time to time. Or if there's like a situation where they just like need some conflict resolution or problem solving with a family, I can help with that. And yeah, we were also super well connected with Range Mental Health and with the school. So sometimes those conversations involve getting support from those places. Yeah.
What's the age limit of your kids? Or is there a cutoff date or whatever? Or...
Yeah, in general, right now, most of the mentees, almost all, with the exception of one, are all middle and high schoolers, but we have in the past had elementary aged kiddos as well.
And some of the developing ones are that age.
Yeah, some of the ones that we're setting up right now are elementary age. Yeah. Yeah, we usually do a pretty good job of once we hear that someone is interested in having a mentor, getting them set up as quick as we can. What we've noticed is like if somebody's waiting for a long time, whether that's a mentor waiting to be connected or a mentee, just like life happens and suddenly they don't have as much time or they don't have as much interest. So we try and make it happen as quick as we can. So right now we have, I think we have 3 or 4 that are waiting for a mentor, and we have some folks that we're like setting those relationships up to see if it's going to be a good match. Other questions about mentoring? Okay, so I'm going to share a little bit about some of the clubs and social supports that we offer at UCR, and all of this stuff is connected with mentoring as well. The hope with all of these clubs is to provide a social outlet to help Ely kids feel connected, make friends, develop social skills, develop other skills. And they're all free and open. And these clubs specifically are open to middle and high school students. We also have an after school program for elementary age kids. And the hope is that these clubs offer an opportunity for mentors to bring their mentees to an event where they know there will be peers and there will be like other social things happening that they can participate in. So one club that I host is the Game Club. Game Club started as like board games and card games and quickly turned into Dungeons and Dragons. Kids are super into Dungeons and Dragons right now. It's having a renaissance. And it might seem a little silly to like encourage kids to play games when we were just talking about like them playing games at home being like something that is a detriment in some ways, but it's turned out to be a really good way to get kids who might not otherwise come out and socialize to like socialize with their peers through some of these games. And it's a cool sort of gateway to other programming. You know, if they make friends playing D&D, they might be more open to coming to Outdoor Club and like going on some of these trips that we host and lead. And also Dungeons and Dragons is a little ridiculous, but it does involve like kids working together to solve problems. And there's rules and there's, you know, pretending to be another person, which kind of forces some empathy and thinking about like what other people might act like. So it has turned out to be kind of a cool opportunity for kids. We also offer a video production club. This was intended to give kids an opportunity to film and edit video, to learn how to do those things, to learn a lot of the like production side of video editing. And we've been partnering with Psycho Art Studio, which is above Napa Auto Parts. Kurt Lane runs that studio, and he has a ton of equipment that he's let us borrow and use, green screens and like very complex computers and cameras and lights and all sorts of things. And Todd Krigo who runs the local television station, has also been super helpful in working with kids one-on-one to like help teach them how to edit footage. I don't have a background in video editing, so it's like been kind of fun for me to learn along the way. But we've been really supported by both of those guys who've really put in a lot of time and energy to help kids learn. So in these pictures, you can see, I think there's an interview happening. They also just recently built their own computers. We were kind of coming up against a roadblock of not having enough workstations for kids, and the school computers weren't powerful enough. So we bought the components to build computers because it's way cheaper to buy components, and it was a cool opportunity for kids to learn how to assemble a PC. We had a couple of local community members help, and honestly, the kids like somehow already knew what they were like. I didn't know what I was doing, but they figured it out. I was learning from them most of the time, but we put them together and they turned on, so it's amazing. Other things other projects that Video Production Club has worked on. They filmed for Mental Health Awareness Month. They interviewed local artists talking about how they use art as coping mechanisms to support their mental health, which was aired at the theater. We've made a series of films that showcase cool things to do in Ely in the summer, like films at Seamers Beach and canoeing. We filmed an interview with Bill Erzar talking about the Pioneer Mine. And we also edited some footage from other events that we've hosted, from outdoor club trips, dog sledding trips, things like that. We also have a goofy commercial that the kids made for the club. Do you want to see it? It's a little silly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is so fun.
To use this, or use that, or do this, or do that. Join Video Production Club today to film fun stuff like dog sledding, canoeing, zip lines, RC cars, commercials, mic drops, and anything else that we might want to film. Join us at Psycho Art Studio from 5 to 7 every other Monday.
So that was a little yeah. That was a little like lesson in how to use green screens, which was really interesting. Okay. So the one other club that we host is Outdoor Adventure Club. Outdoor Adventure Club is kind of like my personal passion project. Before I worked for ECR, I worked for Outward Bound for 10 years and led expeditions, and was really excited about taking folks into the woods. And so now I get to do that with local Ely kids, and it's super rewarding because surprisingly, many youth in this town have never been camping, have never been in a canoe, have never been in the Boundary Waters, and so this trip, or this group, has been an opportunity to teach skills and also give kids opportunities to go on overnight camping trips where they really get to know each other in a way that they don't get to know each other at school. On a camping trip, on a backpacking trip or a canoe trip, you have so much shared responsibility that kids who might not be friends at school are able to like build really cool connections and relationships as they are trying to navigate together or paddle together or cook dinner together. So it's been a really rewarding experience, and it's been pretty well attended. Lately, we meet every week, and once a season, we're trying to do an overnight trip for a couple of days. So some of these pictures are from our fall backpacking trips that we've done the past 2 years. We did a trip just around Bass Lake and Dry Lake, but we also did a trip on the Superior hiking trail. Oh, sorry. Other way. Oh my gosh. Help me. I don't know how Max works.
What?
Okay, cool. Oh, so this was another goofy thing that happened on the fall backpacking trip. I challenged them to build a debris shelter and have one person sleep in it. A debris shelter being like a shelter made out of sticks and leaves. And then they were like, what if we built a giant one and we all slept in it? So they did that, and this is a picture of it. It took like all day. And it probably wasn't entirely waterproof, but it didn't rain, so it was fine. This is some of them on above the Temperance River, I believe. During winter time, we've done a couple different trips. We did an overnight trip just down on Miners Lake, and we set up a wall tent, and we had a fire, and it wasn't crazy cold that weekend. Fortunately, the Northern Tier Boy Scout base loaned us a bunch of equipment, which made it totally doable, and the kids had a great time on that trip. We also have been partnering with White Wilderness to offer Ely kids a chance to go dog sledding. This year they did an overnight dog sledding trip and stayed in a yurt. We also, that picture on the right is from a ridiculous day where, does anyone know what LARPing is? A couple people, okay. Stands for live action role playing, which is like playing Dungeons and Dragons, but you dress up as a character and you have foam swords and you run around in the woods. But we did that, and I was like, they really wanted to go LARPing, so I was like, well, we can do that, but it has to be, educational. So there was a series of like quests that they had to do that involved identifying trees and building fires. At one point, they had to build a fire in a sled and then transport it and navigate around the woods while snowballs were being thrown at it and things like that. In the summertime, this past year, we partnered with Friends of the Boundary Waters and Spirit of the Wilderness, and we're able to do a week-long Boundary Waters trip. For most of these students, this was their first time in the Boundary Waters, and this trip was awesome. It was like a lot of goofy silliness. There was fishing and giant inflatable dragons and a lot of games, and also like we allowed them to have progressively more and more responsibility until by the end of the trip they were cooking all their own meals, navigating on their own, like figuring it out. A couple more pictures from that trip. We had a series of different challenges to sort of earn more responsibility, one of which was making a fire with flint and steel, which took, I think, like 2 hours, but it did eventually happen. So yeah, that's a little bit of background on the clubs. Does anybody have any questions about any of those clubs before we talk about how to get involved?
Also a gay straight alliance.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, the GSA is a support group for LGBTQ youth. And we haven't, I didn't put it on this slideshow because we haven't been meeting as actively lately. There just hasn't been enough students to keep it going. And there's a couple, we're definitely still interested in making that happen in the future, but there hasn't been enough participation lately. But we have some ideas about how to restart that. Also this summer, we are going to offer 3 different Boundary Waters trips in partnership with Save the Boundary Waters, Friends of the Boundary Waters, Outward Bound, and the Boy Scout base. And one of those trips is going to be specifically for LGBTQ youth in the local area. Any other questions about clubs and activities?
What is the GSA? Tell us about that.
Yeah, essentially it's a pretty informal club that's mostly motivated by the students themselves. They were the ones that wanted to start it, and it's just a group of LGBTQ youth that wanted to meet up and have a safe space where they could like be themselves and feel supported. So oh yeah, I think so originally it stood for Gay Straight Alliance. I think it's been sort of rebranded to be Genders and Sexualities Alliance. Yeah.
Led by like students choose what they like, how to create them, or is it created by the staff, or is it based on interest, or how does that work?
Yeah, all of these clubs were started 2 years ago. We submitted a survey to all the students, all the middle school and high school students, about what they would be interested in having clubs focus on, and then we chose the things that they were most excited about. And a lot of what we do is driven by their interests. So in terms of like video production club, we kind of asked them, what do you want to make a video about? So they at one point were like, we want to make a documentary about the history of mining. And so we interviewed Bill. And they wanted to do a video about like putting cameras on remote control cars and driving them around on half pipes. And we did that. And that was cool too. All right, I'm going to pass it off to Julie to talk a little bit about getting involved.
Okay, and I just wanted to add to the answer to your question, Elton, the GSA is definitely all focused on what the kids want. And it's not just LGBTQ kids, it's also populated with allies for those people. One of the goal of our mentoring program, and one of the big things about all of our programs, is to expand the community supporting all our kids. You know, no matter, are they kind of too smart to be cool? Are they struggling in school and they're not cool because of that? Or they are wondering about their sexuality and their identity, all of those things added to just being a teenager. You know, sometimes it's really overwhelming. And so what we're after is finding ways to expand their community of support. And it doesn't need to be all one age group that's that's working on that. And when the last GSA group was started, it was actually started by an ally who was mature enough to notice that there were kids surrounding her that needed support. And we've had that opportunity available to the kids at school for a long time. You know, we're reading a lot about wondering about my identity and my gender and all of that stuff now, but it's not new. It's had a different name sometimes, and but we've had that group of kids who want to support each other in school for many, many years. So I appreciate the questions that you have about that, because it is right now something that's really on our radar, and we're not very active right now because our kid group doesn't want to be. So, you know, we're not gonna push anything down anybody's throat. So, yeah.
What do you think? You mean there's straight kids in the group too, or straight?
Yes.
You're talking about adults or other peers?
Peers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like I said, what we're really after is to provide support for all our kids, and there's lots of ways that we can, and I know that you already are doing for youth in Ely, but you could be a mentor yourself, or you might know somebody who is, you know, just has a hankering for, you know, something rewarding in their life like that. We have after school programming now. We expanded our homework club that I'm sure you've heard us asking you to help with, or you've heard us tell about for many, many years. And we were able to expand it from 3rd through 5th grade from 3 to 4:30, 4 days a week. This year we're doing K through 5th grade, and it's 5 days a week from 2:50 to 5:30 every day. So we kind of stumbled into some extra money, so we were able to hire extra people. We have a group of kindergarten and 1st graders with 2 staff, 2nd and 3rd graders with 2 staff, and 3rd and 4th graders with 2 staff. So we've gotten really great feedback that makes us feel like we're doing the right thing, for one thing, but the other thing is that parents are noticing especially those younger ages, missed out on social opportunities to understand, behavior that's going to be to your benefit at school. And just friendship skills and social skills that they are learning now in a relatively unstructured setting after school. We're really glad that we were kind of worried about doing that because we've tried working with larger groups. We have 55 kids signed up in that group, and they don't all come every day, but they're larger groups, and the age span of kindergarten added to 5th graders was kind of spooky, but we've been able to figure out those smaller groups, and they have their own programming. So every one of those groups, though, does at least 30 minutes of homework help. And we're relying on some really great volunteer tutors to help with that. We meet in the very nice new library space for that, and it's been very fun. So we're always looking for some more homework helpers. We also do homework help after school 4 days a week. Jill, who's sitting right over there, Jill Swanson, leads that effort, and she works with middle and high school kids. And we have volunteers, tutors there also. And if you have a skill, if you saw something in the club list, or if you're wishing that some young people knew how to do something that you enjoy doing, we're all ears, and we're always looking for new opportunities for the kids to learn something that they might like for the rest of their lives. And then we have our art auction coming up April 1st to the 10th. It'll be online again. And we'll have, Ryan's going to help me finish the poster this afternoon, and we'll put posters up explaining how to check out all the beautiful art and the wonderful opportunities for Ely experiences that you could purchase or gift to somebody, or anyway, it's our largest fundraiser, and we just, about how everyone here in Ely supports the youth by volunteering their time to create all that great stuff and then offer it on our auction. So do you have any questions about anything I might have said upside down? It runs from April 1st to the 10th, and if you have some art or an experience that you'd like to offer for auction, just let me know this week, or it's an easy website to use, so we can add it late if it takes you a while to think of what you want to give to the auction. Is that what you meant? Hey. It's 32 auctions, and it will, there will be a QR code, and the URL will be on the poster. It's you have to do the whole shebang, https www.32auctions/ECR 2023. I don't expect you to remember all that. Anything else? We sure appreciate you coming today and asking those good questions. And Ryan has a sign-up sheet if you are interested in either getting more information. We have a newsletter that comes out every week that's really easy to use. It's like the page is quite short, and then you can click on links that take you to more information about a certain age group or whatever. We'd be happy to sign you up for that. We're looking for more mentors. We're looking for new ideas for fun activities that our kids can learn from. And it'd be fun to work with even more of you. Thanks. Yep, are you done?
Well, I'm just gonna say that if you have any other questions about any of the programs that I talked about, or if you have any questions for Kaya, who's participated in most of them, he's offered to answer questions too.
You wanna say?
When you guys joined chess club, nobody came last time.
Yeah, you're too good.
They're scared of you.